our Parrot Stars podcast. My name is Alexis. I'm here with Avery, as always.
Hello.
And today, everyone, we have an incredibly special, very important guest with us. So we have Dr. April Romagnano here with us today.
Thank you.
So again, for our viewers on YouTube, you might notice that we are not in my dining room. We are here in Florida at our breeding program where we breed all of the birds that we have at Parrot Stars. So we had an opportunity to have Avery and I come down and share kind of this side of Parrot Stars that a lot of our customers don't always get to hear,
Right, yeah.
or they hear us talk about, but it's not super detailed or in depth. So we just wanted to take an opportunity to give people a little insight to this, what is basically 50% of what we do at Parrot Stars is
That's
this
true.
breeding program.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's why we're in a different dining room today.
Yeah, there you
For
go. That's
anybody
a fancy
watching.
explanation for why the walls look different.
Yes, okay. All right, so Dr. April is and has become our primary vet that we're using for our breeding program. So as many of our listeners could imagine, we have nearly 1,000 birds at our breeding facility, and we've got to make sure we've got a qualified avian veterinarian to rely on in emergency situations. We've been very, very fortunate. You've also been able to provide us with a lot of consulting advice to make sure we're on the right path. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to get a vet's perspective. And then just so you're aware, Dr. April, part of with our goal with this podcast, we've kind of made this promise to our listeners that we're going to try to get some perspectives from all sides of aviculture. So we kind of have these different groups that we've identified. We've got our breeders, which is kind of half of what we do. You got your storefronts or your educators, which is kind of like the face of Parrot Stars. You've got your pet owners, your conservationists, and your veterinarians. So a big goal of ours is to try to invite people on the podcast from each of those different areas so people can start to learn and kind of widen their perspectives and their thoughts about their companion parrots, but also get some insight into what is a very complex but interconnected world of aviculture, especially within the U.S. So that's why we are so excited to have you on today. We cannot wait. So how did you kind of get started in your love of animals? I assume, like nearly all of us who end up working with animals, it starts at a young age. So can you tell us just a little bit about your childhood and kind of the path that you took you to where you are today?
Okay, of course. So like you and everyone, I loved animals from the beginning. I was born in New York, and I knew that I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Yeah.
My family did immigrate after that. We left and we went to Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
So we became non-citizens
Okay.
there. And I do have a brother that's French-Canadian. So we grew up there. In New York, we were accountants and standard-bred horse owners.
Okay.
And then when we got to
nice.
Montreal, I grew up working and caring for standard-bred horses.
Oh, okay.
And I worked with the racetrack veterinarian from the age of 12 in Montreal. And that's when I decided, quite some time before that, but I knew I was going to be a veterinarian. And initially, I thought it was going to be with horses.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
pretty
And
cool.
my desire was really strong, and it just held on and continued through school. So the first place that I went to school after high school was McGill in Montreal. And I went in aviculture, but I also was in agriculture. So I was interested in aviculture, but I was in agriculture. So the first degree was theoretically in agriculture. After that, I went to the University of Montreal, which is Université de Montréal, and I had to do it in French because it's a French-speaking school.
Oh my gosh.
So I did my master's and my PhD at the veterinary school in French, but
Wow.
I also did part of it at the University of Montreal downtown, and that was in the medical building. So one of my professors for my master's and PhD was an MD, and the other one was a veterinary PhD. So it was an MD, master's, and a veterinary PhD. And so when I was working with reproduction and embryos and cytogenetics with animals, I would be in Saint-Hyacinthe, which is where the vet school is. And when I was working with the basics of cytogenetics and, learning lab techniques, I was in Montreal.
Wow.
So I had to go back and forth. So that's how it started. But the end goal was I wanted to go to vet school, and I wanted it to be in Florida.
Okay.
And the reason I wanted it to be in Florida was because our horses came to Florida in the winter.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew
just
about
got
Florida.
goosebumps.
And so I started coming to Florida and taking classes at University of Florida, and I bought a parrot.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
This is
That's
the
how it all
slippery
starts, right?
slope to where we
how
all
it-
are today.
That's exactly what happened. I went into a pet shop, and I was at the University of Florida in Gainesville, and I went into this pet shop, and there were all these parrots that had been confiscated and
Yeah.
brought over illegally.
Yeah.
And there was one in the cage all by himself, and I had to have him.
Yeah.
So he was a little white-fronted Amazon,
Aw.
spectacled
Oh, that's
Amazon.
awesome.
Yes.
And I named him Cupid, of course. And that was it. I focused on becoming a veterinarian, but he was just everything. So my bachelor's was at McGill, and then the master's and PhD was at the Université de Montréal. And then after that, I said, I'm going to go to vet school. And I got into UF. So while I was going to UF, he had some health issues. So I was using the wildlife department instead of going to a local veterinarian. And I got to know the wildlife department,
Okay.
which turned out to be a really wonderful place.
Aw, that's
So when I
awesome.
finished veterinary school, I was given two options. I was offered an internship because of my PhD in publications and things like that. The equine people wanted me.
Yeah.
So they offered me an internship in equine medicine. But the wildlife people offered me an internship in the zoological and wildlife medicine department. And my friend Dr. Daryl Hurd was there, and Elliot Jacobson, and all these wonderful residents. And I'm like, I'm going to choose zoological medicine. And that was it. The choice was made. I chose birds, and I've chosen birds forever after for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so short anymore. We're almost 2 years
Yeah.
of friendship here, but it is absolutely incredible to watch you work because
Aw, thank you.
it's so evident that parrots have been your passion for so long
My God.
because you're able to see. And what I watch you do is you're able to look at them from so many points of view. You can look at them from a very medical perspective, but then you also see them for the individuals that they are.
Yes.
And I think it can take a lot of experience and a lot of hands-on work with them to appreciate how much their individual needs impact their medical needs. Like
They are so insanely intelligent.
Yes.
And so the difference between all other aspects of veterinary medicine in my mind, and because of my experience and because of how lucky I've been to work with large collections like yours, and at ABRC, Aviculture Breeding and Research Center, I was there for 9 years, and there's 5,500 breeding birds, and I lived there and slept there and worked day and night there, and we had a shower in nursery, and you changed your clothes and you put the backpack on with my son in it, and I was just in there every single day.
Oh my gosh.
And it was unbelievable. So that experience, even though I'm only 63, going to be 64 next month, I'm like 500 because I got to work there with so many birds for so long.
Yes.
So I was seeing when we would do the exams for every year, of course, we'd watch the birds every day. We'd examine them every day. We had curators and we had wonderful staff, but we also examined them every year, before breeding. And every single year, like I'd be touching 150 birds a day. 150 birds a day. So it was just such a condensed, wonderful experience where I've carried that with me, and thank God we met because it's here too. That wonderful experience is here too. And I know that you guys really try and really care.
Thank you.
And I really think with your pet shop situation and the educational aspect of it, that you're really making a difference. And when I was, seriously, when I was going through these questions, everything just kept coming back. It's like education. What do you think about this? Education. What do you think to tell people? Education. What should parrot people know? People need to be educated
Exactly.
because these animals are so I'm getting goosebumps. They're so intelligent. And people that don't understand parrots or haven't had the opportunity to live with parrots or be with parrots, they don't realize how intelligent they are.
Yeah.
And once they get that, I mean, they talk to us. I had a client come in just the other day, and they were explaining to me, it was an older couple, what they told me about their life with their parrot was their Malukan talks in sentences, requests things in sentences. When new people come into the house, hi, it's nice to meet you. Oh, it's nice to meet you too. It's lovely today. Like total sentences. I mean, this bird gets a lot of attention, and many of the birds do, but they have the intellect to communicate with us in our language.
Yep.
We are not communicating with them in their language.
Yeah.
And if you just put that in perspective, I mean, they're just insanely intelligent. So if you take that part of it and then you group that with veterinary medicine, you know, avian medicine and surgery, and then you put it together with aviculture, that's where you have to have that unique, what you mentioned before, as I'm looking at them as an individual because they are individuals.
Yep.
They are.
They are. Some of them do fabulously in a situation, like you realize, I know you do, in a situation where they're breeding, but some of them can't be in that situation.
Right.
Because their mentality is, I want to be in a home and I want to be with my family and I want to have that kind of interaction. So I think the thing that's made me get to the point that of understanding is the exposure. The exposure that University of Florida gave me that possibility through the internship to do that residency at North Carolina. When I did the residency, the avian medicine and surgery residency, it was the only one in the world. So I got lucky. I was so lucky. It was on parrots. And it was given at North Carolina State University. They have an excellent program. Sadly, they don't have the only avian anymore. There was only 8 of us. And all of us have been so lucky and gone in the direction of help birds in many different ways. But I've stayed in Florida, and I'm really happy that I did. And the reason I did was I came here for Aviculture Breeding and Research Center, ABRC. And then after that, I just stayed here and went into private practice and had multiple practices. And then since 2011, the first started in 2001, but since 2011, I've had a solely avian and exotic practice. And that has made the difference because birds need peace. They can't be near barking dogs. They can't be near aggressive, animals. So it's important that they're all in single incubators with oxygen separated so that you can keep them clean and disinfect and use a different towel and a different piece of tape and everything has to be clean. So if you get all of that, and then you're going to be very successful with birds. And so education is the main thing, and teaching is something that you can help the people with, which is, I think, your raison d'etre, right? That's what you guys want to do, right?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's always been our mission. And I think Avery and I have just had this really unique opportunity that we've met such influential people. And it's really shaped my point of view on parrots and the decisions that we're making here. I mean, it's been an absolute learning experience. Like, there's not one decision that we've made without the impact of somebody who might have done it better, or if we've made a mistake or something. I feel really fortunate that we've had people that have helped coach us and guide us. But I just think it's so important that people do listen to the different perspectives.
Yeah, but it never stops. It's like you never stop trying to make it the best for the birds.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is through, like you said, education.
Exactly. And there's so many particular things about different species.
Yes.
And the only way that you can learn that is through interactions with people that have experienced it or interaction with the birds themselves.
Yeah.
And with the collection that you have, it's exquisite. And you have so many different species, and they're in such good shape. And so you can learn through them and then through people that have worked with other species. Like today we're talking about red-tailed blacks and how they're different from the females and the males. And when they're in the beginning, they all have their little yellow spots and then they go away and boom, it has a redder tail. And now I know it's a male. And so there are things that we know and they're born as a little fuzzy yellow thing that you would assume was something else. And so, it's just these things because you've learned them. And other people, they haven't been exposed. So the only way to help them is to educate them.
Yeah. I think sometimes people can be a little bit intimidated by veterinary medicine because it is the knowledge base that you all have is just absolutely mind-boggling. And I think sometimes people are intimidated, but I think there are opportunities for bird owners to at least get a little introductory information or not to be super scared of the complex words and things that exist when we're talking about avian medicine specifically. But I think it is really important for people to have at least a preliminary knowledge base about their parrot's wellness.
Exactly.
Things to watch for, things that they need that are preventative. I think sometimes our experience or sometimes what we watch and see is we have a lot of customers that kind of are problem solving instead of problem preventing. They kind of wait until a problem arises when
triage. Yeah. Trauma medicine.
Well, yeah.
Rather than let's look at our lifestyle as a parrot owner as a whole. Like what can we do to help prevent the bird from going down a path of illness or pain or something where you might need some severe vet medicine intervention. So just, is there something kind of off the top of your head or some recommendations you can give to the listeners about how they can kind of proactively approach their bird's wellness in their home?
I think you already hit on that topic, preventative medicine. I think that is key. There is maybe in certain groups of people an understanding that birds that stay at home with me or my family for 20 years and don't go to a vet are super healthy. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's really important to understand that they are going to live basically as old as we're going to live.
Yeah.
60, 80, 90 years old. Some birds have even lived over 100, 120.
We were just
crazy.
Talking about that. Yeah.
My friend in the Netherlands is actually compounding this information, and he's going to put it all together.
Stop, that'll be so cool.
Yeah, and he's trying to get us all to, send him information of all the birds that like the oldest bird, the oldest bird, the oldest bird. And he's wonderful.
Wow.
So this is out there, and people, when they begin to realize that and they understand that they do go to the dentist and they do go to the doctor and, there are situations in their life where they have to go and have a surgery. The same thing is for birds because they're living these long lives. Yep. And perhaps the biggest clue came to me was, and I'm going to go back to intelligence, is when I was in my residency, I had to work on different topics, and I had some interests, like clinical cases that were very interesting. We could talk about them later.
Yes.
But I also had to do a research project, and I wanted it to be on the first MRI in birds. And when I started seeing the difference between the citizen bird brain and, say, the pigeon bird brain, I mean, it's basically looks like our brain.
Yeah.
So the actual brain structure and the way, the percentage of white to gray matter and the way it's laid out is so different in parrots than other bird species. So different. So if you keep that in mind and you understand that they're going to have longevity, a really long life, the only way to do that is through education and husbandry. So you have to be able to have preventative medicine and the education to know when to give them the right foods and for the right time of their life or the right species. And then there's species that have issues with iron, like iron storage disease with and those species every year we learn more things, but years ago we didn't know that lories were in that group, right? That happened back in the 90s when we found out that red lories were affected, and then it went out to all lories. So we know the ramphastids, and we know that the myna birds are affected. So, and then all of the hornbills and the toucans and the toucanettes like you guys have. And so now that we know the lories are included in that group, and of course the birds of paradise and other species, but predominantly we know that these groups need a special husbandry diet. You cannot give them grapes. You cannot give them things high in iron. You cannot give them citrus fruit, because increase in acidity increases the absorption of iron into the liver. And when the iron storage in the liver goes up, then they get heart disease. And so they will die of heart disease. And so it's really important to know that, like you were saying earlier, different species have different husbandry needs and different diet needs. So I would think the most important thing are two, bifold: preventative medicine and husbandry, including diet. But husbandry is not just diet. It's cage, how many perches are in the house, location of the perches, whether the birds are ignored. And then you have to worry about the toxins in the environment and whether it's a safe environment. So husbandry is probably the single most important thing we do in agricultural medicine and avian medicine, is we try to figure out the environment. What happened in the environment that could hurt that particular species? And what about that particular species is different than the species next to it or down the street from it that makes it special, and how you can take care of it better?
Yeah.
So I think those things are important.
And medicine is kind of a scary word, especially when you're talking about in terms of your companion pet. But like what you just said, the stuff and connecting everything, connecting avian vets with the actual husbandry and then all the different groups, you are doing that at home by providing, like you said, the perches and even the toys and the cage size and all that stuff. And so that is medicine for your bird.
Yeah,
it is.
People don't think of it that way.
It is. It's the same thing you would do if you had a toddler. You wouldn't put him in a box with nothing to play with. You'd find every type of block and thing.
Yeah,
and,
keep them busy the whole
You'd buy
day.
all the best toys, and you'd be reading to them all day long. And that's basically what that elderly couple does with their bird.
Oh.
They've educated that bird, and that bird is like a family member, probably 5 to 7 years old. Like, has that meant, is that bright? And that's a difficult place to reach with a cockatoo, like an African gray, that, right? An African gray really fast, but with a cockatoo, they've gone so far with that bird, and it's really impressive. So I think owners that are dedicated and are willing to learn and are willing to look at husbandry and are willing to give their bird every day, fresh vegetables and fresh fruit, not just, well, we had some today, or I cut a tomato. It has to be every day. And to then have a healthy commercial diet, and limiting the things that are not safe, like peanuts and sunflower seeds, especially peanuts in the South, where you worry about the humidity and fungus and aflatoxins and things like that. So when you look at the actual environment that you're in, every place is different. If you're incubating baby birds in Florida, right? If you're incubating baby birds in Florida, you have to worry about excess humidity. If you're incubating baby birds in California, you have to worry about dryness. So the baby birds in an incubator, even in an incubation room in California, could be quote unquote sticky chicks, where they can't come out of the egg because they're so dehydrated that they get stuck. Whereas baby birds in Florida, if you're not regulating the humidity in the room, you could have edematous chicks where they'll drown in the egg. So even at the level of incubation, which is what I care about very much, even at that level, there's differences, and it's based on where you live, on the environment where you live, and the level of what you can keep your bird safe from. Whether it's storms, hurricanes, rain or lack thereof. So everything matters, but education, diet, and preventative medicine. Those are the three things.
For sure. So can you tell us, is there a particular case that you think is very interesting, or
a couple? It's hard. I know, for just one.
Your career absolutely fascinates me, and your ability to apply things that you've experienced in the past and mold your past experience to each new case is just really, really interesting to me. You'll be telling me something that you're doing, and then you're like, and then because of this thing that I did this however long ago, I'm God, the amount of experience that's going into each decision is just really, really impressive. So just if you have something interesting to share, it doesn't have to be you don't have to worry too much about dates or things that.
I think,
but just something interesting that you've experienced that you think people might enjoy.
I think that maybe for the audience. Maybe the most interesting, and also interesting for me, is the toxicity cases that I've seen.
Okay.
And that pertains to living in homes and having access to different items that can cause problems. So one of the things I wanted to mention was metal toxicity. So we have to be really careful with zinc and, of course, lead, but other forms of metal. Locks have a lot of zinc inside of them. So just normal locks, birds can take apart, especially macaws and cockatoos. They can take locks apart. And so inside the locks, a lot of the mechanism is zinc. Keys, a lot of keys are made of zinc. Cage wire is made of zinc. So that's a good place to start, using acid and brushing it down, alcohol and brushing it down, things like that. So when birds are exposed to toxins, years ago, we used to treat them predominantly with calcium EDTA injections, and they must, in my opinion, be given subcutaneously with fluids. And places where they do a lot of this would be New York, Boston, Paris, and AMC in New York, the AMC Animal Medical Center in New York. They, of course, have a bag hanging in the avian exotic ward where it says calcium EDTA bag, and it's already suspended in fluids. So it's really important to know that giving calcium EDTA has to be with fluids because it could cause kidney problems. And so when birds get access to metal or eat a piece of metal from a block or something in the home, years ago, like very, very expensive wine and very, very expensive champagne, the covers of the top would be with lead. So that was a place. And old-fashioned curtains, even today, some of the more expensive curtains will have lead weights in the bottom. And then lead, fixtures and glass things on windows, especially in Florida. There's a lot of these glass catchers, and they have lead in between the pieces of glass. And so birds like to chew on lead, as do children, because it's a pica thing. It's a sweet taste. And so if they get access to it,
God,
they'll keep doing it. Yeah. I once saw a pair of cockatoos in North Carolina, actually, during my residency. It was a breeder and a hand feeder, a very small breeder. And she had her two favorite cockatoos by the window, and there was a lead, I guess it's called light catcher on the window. And they stuck their little feet out and they pulled it to the cage. And between the two of them, they filled up their proventriculus and ventriculus like a ball. So it got through the proventriculus and it landed in the ventriculus, and they both had a big shiny metal ball on the radiographs. So we had to do surgery on both of them and actually scoop it out. Now, predominantly, most of the time, you can't do that because you can't find that one piece in there. So usually a small piece. In this case, they were going to die. So, I mean, I see ducks and geese like that, where they'll eat pennies that they find, and or fishing hooks or things like that. I'll take those out. But in this particular case, they had actually ate so much of it that it was a circle similar to this microphone on the radiograph. And so we took it out. So getting to the point of the toxicity, previously we used calcium EDTA, like the bag at AMC, and I use it sub-Q in my clinic, of course. But back during my residency, I saw hyacinth that was severely, severely toxic, metal toxic, and it was going to die. And during my internship, I saw a chimp, and the chimp had metal toxicity from paint chips. So these are the two key cases. You asked me about two cases. One was a chimp and one was a hyacinth. So with the chimp, I was the intern and the resident was Lee Young at the time. And so we were trying to figure out a way to avoid using calcium EDTA because we did it. And the chimp that was older, in her 40s, was laying down in the cage when the associate professor gave the first injection. She woke up and rattled the cage across the room and tried to attack him. Now, this is an animal that had a 12% PCV that couldn't move previously. So we thought, I think that hurt. So we set out to find something that would be another option. We found out about DMSA. And DMSA is a medicine that has been used classically in children for lead toxicity all over the world. And it has a very bad smell. It smells like rotten eggs. But what we did is we figured out that it was used in birds in a research study. I figured that part out. And then he found out about the children. And we got Welch's grape juice, and we fed it to her every day, which she adored, the Welch's grape juice, and she got her DMSA. So then during the residency, I saw the hyacinth. So I treated the first parrot with DMSA. And so now we all use DMSA to treat parrots after the calcium EDTA. I only use 1 or 2 shots, and I send them home safely for 10 to 30 days on DMSA, and it's safe. I don't have to worry about kidney failure now.
Yeah, wow.
Whereas previously we would do 5 days with fluids and then stop, and then maybe do it again, and then stop, for 5 days. So you had to do 5, 5, 5, 5 so that you would spare the kidneys. Now I just do 2 or 3 days with that, 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 shots, up to 4, and then I send them home on DMSA. So that was exciting, and that's very pertinent information if your bird, gets into heavy metal or any type of metal object in the house. And one of the ones to be careful of is the washers. The washers that hold up perches and toys. You can go and replace them for stainless steel. They tend to be zinc. So that's something to think about. The little birds are not going to be bothered by that, but the big birds will like to take them apart.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then my second case is a toxic case too, and it was in Florida. And it was a bird, was a macaw this time, another macaw, but it was a blue and gold. It wasn't a hyacinth. And this bird lived with an older couple that was very attentive to their birds. They had several birds. And in her house, she had a desert rose plant. And before the birds were going to bed one night, she said, "Don't touch my new bloom on my plant." And the blue and gold looked at her, wait till she went to bed, ran over the plant,
wait till you leave.
ate the whole flower. The whole flower. Now, one leaf, one petal will kill a child from a desert rose plant. It's a cardiac toxic plant. He ate the whole flower. Then he realized he didn't feel well, and he ran to her room on the floor and started foaming at the mouth, turned blue, fell over and seizured. And she called me, and I was in Colorado, I believe, in Denver, Colorado, at an Avian meeting. And I said, "I'm in Denver, Colorado, but I'll help you." Click. They hung up on me. I called them back and I said, I'll help you. So I got my staff to come in the middle of the night. I had a wonderful young technician that worked with me, and his dad went with him. They owned a macaw, blue and gold, too. And then my husband showed up because he found out about it. I mentioned, I was texting him, and they gave the bird activated charcoal and fluids, and we took the heart rate, and the heart rate was like nothing. Severe bradycardia, because it causes bradycardia because the potassium goes up. And so all of the signs were in this bird. Has never been reported in birds before. We got blood, we tested it. I came back from Colorado. 3.5 weeks later, the bird goes home. We saved it. Hyperbaric really helped a lot because we had to get oxygen to parts of the brain that the heart wasn't getting the oxygen to. So it worked out really, really well, and we saved that bird, but it was never published before. And I didn't learn about that plant in vet school. They didn't talk about it. It's not in any of the textbooks. Yeah. So I called poison control from the place I was eating my Caesar salad in Denver. And they told me, "Oh my God, you've got to get atropine in the bird now. Oh my God, you've got to start furosemide. You've got to get that bird to urinate out all of this toxin, and you've got to give it fluids and keep it in the hospital." And we did all of this, and the bird made it. Wow. And it was wonderful. And with that case, also the hyacinth case, in this case, I published them, but I also presented them at the Avian meeting before. And this case with the desert rose, I just submitted for publication.
Wow.
Just a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
So I think those are the two cases that pertain to living in a home environment. Now, it is safe, very, very safe, to give birds hibiscus flowers. Right. This particular macaw, this blue and gold macaw, used to go into the backyard, still does, goes into the backyard, and she lets him eat hibiscus flowers. So he was
like kind of conditioned to it.
So he was already conditioned. And then when he saw that, and she said, "Don't touch that one," and then he ran for it, and he'll never touch one again. Yeah. But she said she gave all her plants to her neighbor, or at least her desert rose plants. Yeah. But it was a very exciting case because I was at a meeting with all of these wonderful veterinarians from all over the world that know everything. And I went from person to person to person. "Have you ever seen this? Have you ever?" No one had ever seen it. All of these experts that many of, they were all there. And I'm like, "Please tell me, have you ever?" I'm trying to save this bird. And they're like, "April, you're in Denver." I'm like, "Yeah, but I got to save this bird." And we did. We saved the bird. But nobody had heard about it. Even the toxicologists that were there. Yeah. So poison control saved us. Yeah. It's wonderful. And they did a really good job. So that's a good thing for people at home to remember. Poison control. Call that number.
Resource,
and the toxicologist is actually on the paper with us. So it's really turned out to be a good story.
Well, something that I appreciate about you so much is that I've seen you take in cases, even from birds from us, and your willingness to just kind of tackle the problem. You're not afraid to just really dive in to figure out how can we fix this issue? How can we learn from it? What can we do better next time? And distance doesn't stop you.
Yes.
Like not necessarily having that answer in that moment doesn't stop you. You're so motivated to take it as an opportunity to learn. And we're like in the process of like kind of learning about kind of complex things that we're seeing here at our program. And you've just been so willing to support us and kind of give us the guidance of where we can start to gain answers to questions that seem kind of a little ambiguous and we don't know kind of what direction to take. So I've just been really appreciative and grateful to be able to watch you work in that way. And I've seen that, I think, among many vets that I've had the privilege of knowing is that there's this like sense of no problem or no case is like unsolvable if you work at it.
Exactly.
And I think it's so fascinating to watch that happen.
Yeah, and I think that's really important when you right back again to the word education. And I think that during my internship and during my residency, that with the people in zoo medicine and in avian medicine and zoo medicine and wildlife, those types of people, that's exactly where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Because they teach you to do that. And we teach each other. We help each other. The zoo world is, I'm getting goosebumps again. The zoo world is just, the people are so amazing.
Yeah.
You know, they're so amazing. And they just always try to do the right thing. And they always try to make everything a little bit better for the animals, you know? And I think that type of thinking has to be a little bit out of the box, a little bit like MacGyver.
It's a really good way of putting it. You do think out of the box. You have to be able to take different past experiences, different points of view, and you just have to kind of create your own path sometimes.
Right.
Or be willing to look for a path that somebody else has taken. And it's just really, it's something else.
Yeah.
I think that's the cool thing about this world, like the zoo world and then the vet world and even, our world, is everybody's in it for kind of the same reason.
Yep.
Like if you think of, I don't want to like offend anybody, but like in more of an office setting, you're gonna try to work your way to the top, and maybe you have to, do a little stabbing here or there. But here, it's all about
the animals. It's very much like pediatrics.
Right.
In my mind, it's like pediatrics.
That
like
gives me
all
some
of
too,
us care. Like if there's a baby carriage going in the street, we're all going to run and try to get it out of the street.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing with animals. At least it is for me. Like you should always take care of what you tame.
Yeah.
That's a phrase from Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince, the book, The Little Prince. And anything that you take out of the wild, you are forever to take care of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was in Nicaragua, a veterinarian was with us, and her name was Kimberly. She was wonderful. So she had been on that Nicaragua trip the year prior. It was the 5th day, which is the second to last day. And we're walking with her. It was her second time back at the island. And she does primarily cat and dog, but she has this yellow-naped Amazon. And the purpose of the Nicaragua trip was a conservation program by One Earth Conservation centered in yellow-napes. And it was right as we were going to do our final lunch where we kind of would come together, talk about our experience, kind of share our emotions and everything. And right before we get to the restaurant, we see these 2 yellow-napes sitting up in the tree.
Oh.
And Kimberly's right next to me. And she's like, I've been wanting to tell you this quote that I think is going to like resonate with you because my whole thing is like, I'm choosing to put these birds in cages. I'm choosing who's going to take care of them their whole life on the baby side. Like, I feel like this huge sense of responsibility. Sometimes it feels a little bit like a burden, but I try not to let it. But she's like, there's a quote that's essentially, you owe your life to that which you tame.
Exactly.
And it's that exact quote.
Yeah.
So this is the second time it's being brought to me by a veterinarian. I think because you see so much that, yes, we do have this like immense responsibility to do whatever we can to protect these animals. And if we are choosing to keep them in captivity, we better do whatever we can to keep them healthy, to keep them well adjusted and happy. And it's been, I don't know. It's just like something that always stands out to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
that might be the first thing I might want to tattoo on myself.
Oh, totally. Totally.
I'm like, I've
And-
never had a phrase really hit me
Yeah.
so hard, but yeah,
Oh,
it's
and me
true.
too. Me too. And I was very young when I read that book, and I have it in French and English, and it just stuck in my head. And you're talking about Laura Kim, are you?
Yes,
Okay.
Laura Kim. Yep.
And you know that maybe you remember that we crossed paths as well in North Carolina.
Oh, really?
She was with me. She took an associate professorship position when I was there during my residency.
Oh, wow.
So part of the 2 years I was there was spent with her.
Yeah.
And
she's been really influential for me
Yeah.
too. So it doesn't surprise me that
Yeah.
you guys have similar.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for both of you because I see a lot of similarities. It is genuinely at the very core of what you do every single day when you wake up. It is you live your life for these animals.
Yep.
And it's remarkable. And I think it's inspiring. And I wish that we could encourage people to have that kind of same drive with their own pets.
Oh, yeah.
But I think and I'd be curious too, kind of what your perspective is on how kind of the culture has changed a little bit, even in the 7 years that Parrot Stars has been going, from where we were 7 years ago and the types of conversations we were having about pet ownership
Mhm.
to what we see now. I think there has been a
progression.
significant shift
Mhm.
in responsibility to take better care of these animals and do better for them. So kind of, have you seen a similar
Oh,
shift
definitely.
over
Definitely.
your career?
Because the first time I touched a parrot, really, honestly, was in 1978, right? When I got my bird. I then realized that there was an avian veterinarian in Montreal, and her name was Dr. Karina Lupu.
Okay.
And she owned the only avian place in Montreal. And so I took my bird there. She also taught at the veterinary school. So later, when I was at the veterinary school doing my master's and PhD, I realized that she was there. And my friends who were going to the French veterinary school, I could have gone to the French veterinary school, but I really wanted to come back to the United States.
Yeah.
And I was there for 4 years for the master's and PhD. But when I was there, she was the state of the art at the time in Montreal. And she was excellent and she did a really good job. But Montreal is a big city, so there's a lot more communication and things like that. And I think when I moved to Florida and it was a more rural setting, when I was at Aviculture Breeding and Research Center, it was a more rural setting. So in Aviculture Breeding and Research Center, yes, there's lots of knowledge, but in the surrounding rural areas and residential areas of Florida, things weren't as known, and that was in the 90s. And then, but most importantly, the standard of care that you give, which is very high, to sell the baby birds once they are weaned. That's been the big development. So years ago, there were so many baby birds. I see some today. Where they're selling birds to people that have never hand-fed, and the baby birds are, getting aspirated. And so that's one of the most common baby bird traumas, emergencies that I see, and it's very sad. And so the standard of care with that in mind has really escalated because people like yourselves have a pristine collection. You take care of it. You feed them fruits and vegetables. You give them excellent commercial diets. You give them breeder pellets versus maintenance pellets. You know what you're doing, and then you make sure they're weaned and they're hand-fed properly and kept in clean environments and given a different syringe for each bird, and then they go to a home after they're weaned. That's a development that I watched, right? And so I think that's really important. And then once they go to the home, the fact that you have an educational program, that's rare. That's very rare. So, and wonderful. And so that is something that I'm seeing more of now. Whereas before, a lot of these birds, sadly, were purchased in a situation where there was no communication. And then I would mostly see these birds and most of these people as triage trauma medicine, where they would come in with the catastrophe, the leg stuck in the toy that was left open, or they ate something in the house that was toxic, or that got stuck in their crop, or so on and so forth. So a lot of that is preventable if they had more education when they first got the bird for the particular species. So in my clinic, we have these, I think you've seen them, we have handouts.
We stole one of each.
Yeah, there's a big pile.
Yeah, we put them out at Parrot Stars. I was like, we should have told her we took one of each, but I figured they were for the taking. So,
so that's a very important thing, is that every bird is special. So we talked about lories. They can get hemochromatosis, so you can't give them grapes. And then we can talk about major Mitchells. They tend to bleed. You have to be really careful. Always give them vitamin K. Even if you do anything with them, they might bleed. African greys, when you hold them a certain way, it's not a bad thing, but they can bleed from their eyes, and so can the major Mitchells. And then I can just go on and on and on and on and on. So there's special things about each bird that people need to know.
Yeah.
So if they're going to have that species, we talked today a little bit about rose-breasted cockatoos or rosies. They tend to be nervous. There's a nervous gene in them, and some of them will just pick and shake and twitch and pick and shake and twitch, and they won't stop. So they have to, that has to be looked at and perhaps medicated. And so, and African greys, they tend to seizure. Is the seizuring from lack of calcium? Is it from some sort of an innate epilepsy, or could it be born a virus? We don't know. So there are different things that happen in different species, and it happens consistently. African grey chicks are the most common chicks for the moms to chew off the toes, and that's why we think that they have a calcium issue, right? So all of the species have peculiarities, I guess would be a good way to put it, or special needs, and Amazons with Amazon foot necrosis, things like that. So if there be a way to put those into different pamphlets, like those pamphlets are really good, but they need to be beefed up, and we need a pamphlet for every species. And I think something like that would help. And the pamphlets could, of course, be digital, or they could be handed. It's nice when you're in a veterinary clinic to give them something to walk out the door with. But I don't know that everybody will read everything, but if there's something specific and their bird's picture on it, they're going to open it up and look at it, So I think
that's what we did.
So I think that individual pictures of birds, because we haven't mentioned this yet today, but what is the most amazing thing about, they're gorgeous. They're beautiful.
That's true.
So you're working with something every day, this wonderful species before you. Could be one of the 18,000 species of birds, but literally thousands of species of parrots. And you're looking at them, and it's just beautiful. And you're working with this beautiful, gorgeous, amazing, intelligent animal, and you're so lucky. That's what you do. That's what you do. You get up and like, oh, I'm going to get to work with birds today. Like, that's a happy thing, So it's, if you put that all together, I think just teaching that information that you can glean from having interactions with people that have been in avicultural medicine like myself, or other avicultural veterinarians, or they've been in private practice like myself, or other private practice exotic veterinarians, and also aviculturists themselves, like yourself, and meeting with aviculturists of different ages. Like, you guys are super young and I'm super old. And so if you interact with people of different ages, you're going to learn different things. And I think that that's probably the biggest, the biggest learning point is every person now today has more access to information. Think about the 70s. There were no iPhones. There were no cell phones. Think about the 90s. There were beepers. Okay. And then, so all of this progression and the explosion of information is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Because there is a lot of misinformation. I'd like to mention one misinformation thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Vinegar. We have to be really, really careful with vinegar. About 1998 or 1999, early 2000, there was a rage in the agriculture online information where they were telling people, oh, your baby bird has yeast, which is a very common cause of crop stasis in baby birds, right? The number one cause. Probably it's disseminated because people are using the same syringes. They're not washing them with warm, hot water, preferably hot, and Dawn soap, getting off the organic debris, and then using something like Rocal, something that can clean in the face of leftover organic debris, and then rinsing it with something like chlorhexidine to kill off more fungus and things like that. So there has to be like a process. And a lot of people in small home type aviculture will just go like this, and they'll just keep feeding. And so whatever that bird had, like that one's going to have it now. So you have to be really careful. So crop stasis comes from yeast, the most common yeast being Candida. And there are other yeasts, but that's the most common yeast. And so what was perpetuating on the internet was just put vinegar in their mouth. Just put a couple of drops of vinegar, apple cider vinegar with the mother in it, shake the bottle in their mouth. I had birds coming and dying every day.
Wow.
From aspiration of vinegar and chemical pneumonia.
Wow.
So
Goodness.
here's something you would think would be super simple. They got some vinegar on their tongue. They went, they aspirated it. They didn't swallow it, and it went right down their trachea, and it gave them aspiration chemical pneumonia from the vinegar because it's very acidic.
Oh my gosh.
So that's something that I saw, and I thought, oh, that was my first interaction with misinformation on the internet. Now, did I use vinegar, or do I use vinegar all the time? I use apple cider vinegar all the time in a safe dilution, in a gallon of spring water that is served after shaking and that is changed multiple times a day if organic matter gets in there, because this is Florida,
Right.
and we have a lot of humidity. So if you put acidic water out there, you will keep bacteria and fungus down, but it doesn't keep it down all the way.
Yeah.
And I have experience in lab animal as well, and acidifying water is a way to treat animals in lab animal medicine as well. And it is done with a regulator that tells how much acid is going into the watering system. It's a very safe way to treat low-level bacteria and fungal infections and attack yeast. But if you have a baby bird that has crop stasis, that's in fulminant crop stasis, which is an ingluvitis, infection of the crop is an ingluvitis. If you have a baby bird that has that, you really, really need to do flushings of the crop. And you would start with saline and chlorhexidine, and you would progress to maybe vinegar if you couldn't clear it. So that is an option, but only by gavage, never in the mouth.
Right.
So that's just something that I've heard about that was on the internet. But the positive things about the internet is that you could reach people that way. And try to give so much information that maybe the small other amounts of misinformation won't be taken as gospel.
Yeah, and I think too, what's starting to happen is because of the internet and because of all the viral videos that, again, have the good side and the bad side to them, is that most of the time people are willing to share their videos if their enclosure is really good.
Right.
And they're wanting to share and show off and show that their cage is nice and that they're feeding really good food. And so I think people who are non-parrot owners who maybe are so totally unattached to this world are starting to see kind of what the standard of care is. Whereas somebody who maybe has never been exposed to the world, who doesn't know, sees a parrot in a small cage with no toys, they walk in and they don't know that that's not a great enclosure. Right. So I think just in general, animal people that are seeing stuff that even if it's primarily cat and dog, they're exposing themselves to parrot stuff. And they're like, okay, now if I see a bird in a tiny cage without any toys, that might be a red flag to that bird not being cared for as optimally as it should be.
Enrichment. And this is something that we've learned from zoos, right? From zoo medicine with enrichment and how important it is. And thank God it's come to parrots. Because if you think about all the animals, go back to that, what we were talking about earlier, the brain of parrots is the most like us. They're the most intelligent. They need the enrichment probably the most. Don't say it out loud. But they probably need it the most because they're the smartest, and they're in a captive situation where they're used to just going all over the place, And so the captive situation makes a lot of them happy if they have a good relationship with their family and there's multiple perches and they can come out and move about and see things and experience different music and television and something outside. But if they don't have all of that enrichment, then they're not going to be really super happy.
So there's two more things I kind of want to ask you. Avery and I are just trying to glean information from vets because what we're kind of experiencing in Chicagoland is that we are putting all of these pet birds into the community. And we're really struggling with the quantity of avian vets that are available to our customer base. And there are really phenomenal, very qualified avian vets, but they are at max capacity. They are seeing so many avian patients because there just isn't a volume. And it just kind of seems like there's kind of this, I don't want to say fear, but maybe a little bit of resistance or apprehension for young vets to pursue avian medicine because birds are kind of portrayed to be a little bit sensitive. And sometimes if they're, fragile is even a better word, if they're already to the point where they're showing severe symptoms, the odds that you can bring it back from those severe symptoms to full health is not always easy. And I I would just be kind of curious, what's your perspective or what advice would you give people who are considering going into avian medicine or veterinary medicine as a whole, and what you would encourage them about getting an avian specialization, so we can maybe try to encourage potential vets to pursue avian medicine so we can have more available to all of the birds that definitely need to be seen.
There are practices like mine that want to train people. We have externs come from vet schools every year. I have maybe 4 to 10, depending on the year. When I was at ABRC, I had like 20 at least a year. And they came from other countries as well. But these are predominantly fourth-year veterinary students that want to work in private practice. Predominantly, some of them go into aviculture. Some of them have gone into aviculture. Some of them have gone into surgery. But predominantly, they want to go into like a small animal practice where they will be doing more so the avian and exotic part of it. And so that's called an externship. At veterinary schools, you are encouraged. Different schools give different quantities that you're allowed to take, but usually it's 2. At some of the schools, some of the newer schools, there's a few schools that have been created in the last couple of years that don't have a teaching hospital. And those schools, they have like 1.5 to 2 years of didactic book training in a classroom. And then after that, they go on externships all over the place. And that's all they do. And so I've had some of those, the Lincoln Memorial School, which is, I think in Virginia area is one of those schools. And so I've had, I think it's called LSU. LCU. I can't remember. But that school has students, I've had 3 or 4 of them. And they stay for a long time. They stay for like a month or 2. So having externs would help give some information to people. Then there's the option to do internships. And internships usually have to go through the path of match. But there's not a lot where you could do just birds. But there are quite a few avian practices that do take people in. I've had interns before. I'd love to have an intern again. There's a veterinarian in New York that does the same thing, a single veterinarian that takes in interns and residents. And then there's 2 or 3 in New York that do that now. So there are different clinics in different states where you can do that. Then there's specialty clinics. So I'm talking about individual clinics. Then there's specialty clinics where you have an avian and exotic component, and then you have an emergency group, and then you have a surgery group, like that, like a specialty hospital. And those places also will have externs and interns and residents. So those options, there's more options available now because there's more specialty clinics, like my son Kian will probably want to work in. And then there's also people like myself that just have an avian clinic with exotics, which in Florida there's maybe 3 or 4 of us. And then there's something called AHA, which is what we are. We're an AHA referral hospital. And I think there's 4 of us in the U.S. and Canada. So that means that we have to meet certain standards. And that is good also to teach when the veterinary students come and explain what AHA is and that sort of thing. So it's not just the avian medicine. It's not just building a practice. It's not just being AHA. It's like a group of all of these things because like you mentioned, birds are more fragile than mammals. They have less body fat. They last less long if there's an issue. And so you have to proceed like in a certain way. You have to proceed, in my mind, you have to start with getting a visual of the bird, getting a weight, putting it in oxygen, letting it sit, letting it stabilize a little bit, then doing one quick treatment, doing a cursory exam. Again, you got your visual, then you have your cursory exam, put it back in oxygen in a very closed, quiet space where they can't see above, behind, only out the front. And if they're very stressed, just like wildlife, you cover them. So if you proceed like that and you teach other veterinarians to proceed like that, where they come during the externships, could be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and they come and they work with you, then that would be a good way. Like I said, there's the match, there's the veterinary match right out of vet school. You have to enter the match, and you can match for an internship, and then later you try for a residency, or you could just find out in the different states where there are, like you mentioned, a lot of birds, Florida, California, Texas. These 3 states, we have quite a few specialists like myself there. And that helps the formation of other people. And certainly as we age, like I am, I would love to help someone become board certified in birds. And so would Dr. Wade and Dr. Lori Hess and friends in New York that are doing the same thing. And also in Boston, there's Angel Memorial, and in New York, there's AMC. And then those are 2 teaching meccas. They're private practice, not university, but they're in between what we have, what I have, and what the universities have. So they are 2 places where you could also go to train. Wow. But many of the vet schools have. Texas sadly doesn't have a department right now, but they're building a new hospital, and they will. But Florida, California, North Carolina is excellent. We spoke about that before. So there are places that you can go train, but it is very difficult to get in. It is very competitive in zoo medicine in general. And most of the people that are there, like we previously mentioned, are incredible people. They're so kind and giving, but they're also brilliant.
Yeah.
They're also brilliant. So, those are there, but the private practices are here too. And I certainly think that I could help people, and my friends that are like me could help people.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be the way to go.
Yeah. And I think what I'd encourage people to remember, and the advantage of taking an opportunity like that to work with somebody who has this extensive experience and this willingness to teach, is that maybe some of those fears around what could sometimes feel like it might be a high death rate or a low success rate, or fear of handling. That's something I often hear people say, is like when you, especially parrots specifically. I mean, with avian medicine, certain species are easier, safer to handle than others.
Right.
But when you get enough hands-on experience with the parrots and you understand how to safely hold them, restrain them, treat them, all of a sudden your confidence level is going to skyrocket. So I think there is a little bit of apprehension, like, oh gosh, it can be dangerous to do that hands-on work with parrots because they're nervous and they're going to act out of fear, and you might get bit and it might cause some serious damage. But you can safeguard yourself against it if you take the opportunity to learn from people who know and understand how their bodies move, how they're likely to react in certain situations. So if you're thinking about avian medicine, to all of our listeners, I really encourage people to pursue it, because I think there's almost, I think I can say 100% of every avian veterinarian that I've been able to meet and encounter has a very similar, point of view as you. Like, they want to teach, they want to continue this tradition of
definitely. Oh my God.
taking care of these animals and doing it in a way that, if you are willing to learn and get really good at it, you can make a really good impact. You can have a really high success rate.
Definitely.
So I always just hear that. And I know that's something that our listeners kind of can get a little bit frustrated by, is like, gosh, I would be willing to take my bird to the vet, but there's just not a lot of options of where to go with somebody that they can trust to really handle their bird safely, to know how to treat their specific bird in the right way.
And I think even just working with animals, and you of course would agree, is just working with animals in general, how you were mentioning the confidence, but also the skills, of problem solving. And it helps with all walks of life, I think. Especially the more you work with animals, the more you are able to have this sort of critical thinking, if you will, which you can apply, because the animal world is always changing, because you can never predict when an animal's got to behave a certain way. You know what I'm getting at? And it really, I think it helps in general, just not so much even in a medicine sense, but just getting involved with animals in general, because it'll really help all walks of your life.
You're exactly right. The point that I think that what I understood from what you said is flux.
Yeah.
Veterinary medicine is constant flux. So, and when you're working with species that are birds or zoological species, exotic species, it's not a cookie cutter situation.
Yeah.
Dogs and cats and humans are a cookie cutter situation. I mean, pathognomonic signs, it's going to be that, it's going to be this. But with birds and exotics and wildlife, it's always something different and new. So you have to have this running differential list in your head. And that's why it's important with birds to understand specific species issues.
Yeah.
So that you can understand them and apply them when you're worried about a specific problem. Like we talked about earlier with Major Mitchell's bleeding.
Yeah.
Okay, it's bad. You need to get to the vet, but this is expected. Okay. And so forth. But the other thing is when you look at bird handling, because that's the topic you brought up, maybe for people that own parrots for the first time, and I'm sure you explain this to them, is that I tell people in the exam room, you have a thoracic chest cavity. It ends here. You have a diaphragm, and then you have an abdomen. Birds don't have that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So birds have a trachea that's a circle. And that circle is like the straw at the fair. When you drink lemonade, that lemonade straw that moves and it has those circles on it. That's exactly what a trachea looks like in a bird. So it's safe to hold the bird by the neck and then hold the little legs and don't touch the keel. So the only kind of safe towel is the Batman towel that goes over the shoulders, right?
Yeah.
The Batman towel, like the cape. You don't want to wrap the bird in the towel.
Right.
Because if you wrap the bird in the towel, you're stopping the bird from breathing.
Right.
How does the bird breathe? The keel, which is the chest, goes up and down. That's how the bird breathes. You breathe with your diaphragm moving up and down.
Right.
Completely different. So a lot of people think it's okay to wrap a bird in a towel, pull out a wing and clip it. No, you need to let the bird breathe. And so I think possibly a lot of the apprehension is from birds that not by aviculture veterinarians, not by aviculturists, not by avian veterinarians today, but perhaps in a less familiar environment where people are wrapping up birds. And that would be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because they can't breathe.
Yeah.
And even when birds are in a trauma situation on the way to a clinic, I'll tell them, put them in a flat bottom, safe box with a white towel. Don't touch them because they're holding them and they're kissing them and they're, and they're suffocating them.
Yeah.
So a pillow on the face is akin to wrapping the bird's chest. That's what I try to tell people. So I think if veterinarians that are coming out of school learn these things, now they know them intellectually. They know about the trachea. They know about the diaphragm that exists in mammals and doesn't exist in bird and reptiles and so on and so forth. They know about that. But the actual in practice,
physicality,
it's different. Until you've actually showed them how to do this, it's not necessarily innate.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Because we can't comprehend it because it's so different from us and our function.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Okay, so you've been so generous with your time. I'm just curious. It doesn't have to be a bird, but what is like your favorite species that you've been able to work with or feel most privileged by? Or you just don't discriminate? They're all
or list as many as comes to mind. It doesn't,
oh my God.
doesn't have to be
they're
a
all
one.
so gorgeous. My first love was Amazons.
Yeah.
And they talk to me.
Very easy to be infatuated by.
I just love Amazons, like the double yellow heads and my past Amazon and all of
captivating.
That. When I was at ABRC, we had baby slenderbills. Every single slenderbill. I don't know if you've worked with them before, but slenderbills are amazing. Every single one would copy my laugh. So we would drive around.
Dr. April laugh so much. She's got very.
We would drive around in the golf cart, and we'd have people in the back. We're showing them things, and then they go. And so it was hysterical.
That's
so
funny.
that was really cool.
That's hilarious.
Because my laugh is crazy, and they would just copy it. Now, some of the boarding birds that stay with me, they'll copy it, but not like the slenderbills. I mean, they had it. Like they had it, and they're comical. So if you think of a slenderbill, they're like a kayik, like a little bouncy kayik with pantaloons, but 10 times bigger
and a
with like
body.
a funny head, and they're really cool birds, and they're not very common.
They're not. We have them at Parrot Stars, and their face is very striking, and it's not the perfectly round, symmetrical, beautiful face of an Amazon or a gray.
Right.
It's unique. But what we try, like, we know it. We get to see them every day. They're hysterical.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
So
absolutely
funny.
hilarious. And even like, well, Avery can tell you, but when we're walking around him when he was here the very first time last month, the one he wanted to go back and take a video of, out of all
He's
these
just
birds,
so goofy.
was the Slenderbill.
Yeah.
Because like it's just undeniable
funny.
personality. Really, really cool
The
species.
babies at the store sound like ducks.
Yeah.
They quack
Aw.
like ducks.
Aw.
And it's just hilarious. I
It
don't know where they got
is.
that from, but
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So yeah, I think that the Amazons and the Slenderbills, like all birds bring me joy.
Of
You know,
course.
like let's do some feng shui. Let's just keep everything that brings me joy, right? So I think to me it's birds.
Yeah.
It's just birds.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to tell everybody a quick story before we wrap. So Dr. April was our consulting vet when we got our USDA permit. And so part of your USDA permit is that you have to have a consulting avian veterinarian that signs off on all your forms. And so Dr. April was kind of coaching us through this process and making sure that we were going to be compliant in all these different areas. Well, you have the option when you have your USDA inspection to have your avian vet or whoever your vet is on site for the inspection walkthrough. And we were like, well, we definitely want that because we want to be able to show this USDA inspector that we are legit and we are willing to get avian or veterinary medicine if we need it and all this stuff. And so you were walking through with us and I'm walking with the USDA inspector and you're kind of trailing behind a little bit. And we walk past our one and only pair of blue throat macaws.
Oh.
And you were kind of like paused and you went back and you're like, I think I know this bird. And I was like, yeah, okay. Okay. And we go back and you're like, I'm fairly certain this bird is probably from ABRC.
Oh.
And sure enough, that
What?
is a bird that
Oh
is
my God.
banded with an ABRC band. I told Avery this before you came. I'm like,
I know.
she was able to pull out of this 1,000 birds that we have, a bird that she most likely worked with
Yep.
in her past career at that
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, what is that, 40 years ago, 35 years ago? Oh my God.
And I guess when I saw that happen, I was just like, this is somebody that like, you can see in that moment how impactful every single bird is to you.
Oh yeah.
And if that is going to happen and you're able to recognize what in a parrot universe is like, these birds physically look the same, but if you take a moment to care about them as individuals, you do see them as individuals. Even
Yeah,
though
they're just-
technically they might look pretty identical to one another, there are things about them that are unique. And it was just really cool because I was like, she had no idea that bird was an ABRC bird. And yet you were like,
And
that
he
most-
knew me too.
I know. They're just
He
amazing.
knew me too.
Oh, it's just amazing. So
I don't know if it was the laugh or what it was, but he just, his eyes, you know, he just looked right at me.
oh
Wow.
God, it was really
That was
cool.
amazing.
It was really remarkable. I was very grateful to be witness to that. So
Yeah.
all right. So unless there's anything else off the top of your head you want to share, I am so immensely grateful for
Oh,
this
yes.
opportunity to
Thank
talk to
you.
you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to know you. You've been just above and beyond generous with sharing information with me
Oh,
and
thank
helping
you.
me learn and helping me understand things that we could be doing better, changes that we need to make. I mean, my goal is I wish I could be here 24/7 taking care of this place, but I'm in both worlds still.
You need to get that Learjet.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
there you go.
There we go.
That'd be nice.
But I just can't thank you enough for everything.
Thank you.
From the bottom
I
of my heart.
appreciate
It's
it.
just
I
been
appreciate
a fun.
it's just so amazing to be able to have such a beautiful collection so close to where my clinic is.
Yeah.
And that's like great.
Yeah, it is. And it gives me this like very wonderful peace of mind knowing that when I am home in Chicago that I have somebody that is going to care as much as I care about these guys. I mean, don't get me wrong, my staff cares so much.
Yeah, you have a great
But
staff.
they're not capable of doing intervention or triage and to just have that peace of mind that they can go down the street to you and have you there as a resource is just when you have 1,000 birds in your care, that just alleviates a lot of stress and pressure off of me to know I have that option that God forbid we
good.
have an emergency. I have somebody there that's going to do whatever they can to take care of that animal, and that's rare privilege to have that. So I'm
Yeah.
really, really grateful for it.
Good.
And for myself, thank you so much. I mean, I know I just met you last month,
Yeah.
but and I didn't talk much during the podcast. I was just sitting, soaking every single thing
Oh,
in
good.
what you were saying. So, I mean, that's spectacular. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
Oh, goodness.
I just love working with birds, and I love avian medicine. And basically, I was lucky enough to start out in aviculture.
Yeah.
It was just luck. I was just very, very lucky.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so if somebody wanted to learn more or to kind of do a little bit of investigation into all of this incredible work you do, or just want to learn more about their parrots in general, what would be a good place for that?
Well, I guess the best place is the AAV.
Okay.
Right. And then if they want to learn directly from me, I have, I'm available on the phone 24/7. And I can help with whatever species they're having problems with. And then we have flyers and informations at the clinic. And then there's chapters that I've written in textbooks and a couple books that I've also helped with. So those are different items, and we could make those available.
Okay, awesome. So
Fantastic.
we'll put those in the show notes for everybody that wants to learn from this incredible woman who has made huge strides in avian medicine and has contributed so much. So I really strongly encourage our listeners to investigate and learn more. And okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much.
By the way, guys, Dr. April was at our summer festival last year.
I know.
And
yeah.
if you missed her, you really missed out because her talk was freaking phenomenal. So we won't make any false promises, but I do really want to have you back up at the store in Chicago. I think just with having you at the summer festival, I was like, gosh, we could really build this up and have people maybe submit questions or something like that. So
Yeah.
I have so much respect for everything that
Oh,
you have to
thank you.
say. And I just want my customers to just
I want to
know and
talk about
appreciate.
baby birds and
Yes.
getting new birds and
Yes.
bringing them into your house and how to make
Let's
them
do it.
successful
That's
family
huge.
members.
Yes.
Well, we'll
That's
make it
awesome.
happen
Okay.
somewhere in the near future. We'll have you back up in Chicago
We
so
will
that
make it happen.
Okay.
because you just have so much great information for people. So again, everyone, this was Dr. April Romagnano,
Perfect.
as we call her, Dr. April. She was with us here today. Your clinic name again, Avian.
Avian Exotic Clinic of Palm City.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you so much for listening in. You don't know this, but we have this little phrase that we say at the end of every single episode. So Avery
Yes.
will sign us off by saying our little phrase.
Awesome. As always, be kind to your parrot and it will be kind to you.
Oh,
Excellent. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
That's wonderful.